All right, picking up where we left off. Don't Throw Away Tomorrow, Living God's Dream for Your Life by Robert H. Schuller. Page 46. In 1998, Dr. Sample was elected to the prestigious National Academy of Engineering for his contributions to consumer electronics and leadership in interdisciplinary research and education. He was then elected chairman of the Association of American Universities, a group consisting of 62 major research universities, both public and private, in the United States and Canada. He has also served as co-founder and chairman of the Association of Pacific Rim Universities, consisting of 34 major research universities from Russia to New Zealand. I share the details of his credentials because, as you read his advice and wisdom, you may think that you are listening to a theologian. His perspective and wisdom are not heard enough in the secular centers of higher education. I was born and raised in the suburb of St. Louis, Missouri, then moved when I was 6 to a farm in St. Charles County. Dr. Sample told us, as a young man, I was a professional musician playing timpani with the St. Louis Philharmonic. I also played in various dance bands and smoky cabarets in St. Louis County. But then I decided to become an engineer. Eventually, after I earned my doctorate, I became a professor of engineering. Later, I went into administration, as so many of us do in academia. Dr. Sample's wide and varied experiences as a musician, an engineer, a scholar, and a leader have given him the opportunity to share his wisdom with thousands of young people. During our interview, he shared a portion of an amazing commencement address he gave at the University of Nebraska. At this secular university, he asked the graduates 3 questions. The first question you, as graduates, need to think about is, how do you really feel about money? The second question, how do you really feel about children and your obligation to children? And third, how do you feel about God? My experience over the years has taught me that if you can confront these 3 questions early in your adulthood and find answers that work for you, not my answers or anyone else's, but your answers, you will be a much happier and more productive person throughout your life. Dr. Sample then shared the personal advice he received as a young man from the former General Motors executive. I had just earned tenure as a young faculty member at Purdue University when I was offered a very lucrative industrial position. The executive said to me, "Steve, what you and your wife have to figure out is how you really feel about money." He continued, "I'm not saying that you should feel one way or the other, but so many people in this world never figure it out for themselves. There are many people pursuing money who might be happier in a more altruistic profession." And then he said, there are also many people in altruistic professions teaching the ministry and so on who would be happier pursuing money. He concluded, if you can't get the answer right for yourself, you'll be able to address many of life's choices in a more definite and satisfying way. If you can get the answer right for yourself, you'll be able to address many of life's choices in a more definite and a satisfying way. So my wife and I thought about it, and we decided money wasn't all that important to us. We would stay with academic work, and we've been very happy with that decision. Then Dr. Sample asked the graduates how they felt about children. The second question I ask you is so important in the United States today because our society, like it or not, and we hate to admit it, treats children worse than most any other industrialized nation in the world. This is a very tough place for children. With weak family structures, high levels of violence, poor quality health care for many children, and some of the worst schools in the world. So the question I pose to you as students is, how do you feel about children? And what do you think your obligations are to children? What commitments are you willing to make to your own children or to the children of other people? Dr. Sample then explained his belief in the value of long-term stable marriages. My wife and I have been married for over 4 decades. We came to our marriage with a strong commitment to making it work. Both of us are willing to go more than halfway. My parents had gone through a very difficult divorce just prior to our being married, and that was unquestionably the most painful thing that had ever happened to me. We were determined to give our children and grandchildren the gift of a stable home life. The third question I asked the graduating students was, how do you feel about God? I think this is a more embarrassing question for many people than how they feel about sex. By asking the question, I'm not trying to sell you a set of religious beliefs. The question is not how should you feel about God, but how do you feel about God? It's all right with me if you believe there is no God, or that there is a God but you don't wish to have a relationship with him. But I have found that the majority of people duck this question altogether. It is too scary for them to seriously address. Millions of people in this country regularly attend religious services, yet haven't any idea how they feel about God. And there are millions of agnostics who feel that questions pertaining to God are unanswerable or unimportant, but who can't fully suppress their concerns for the spiritual aspects of their own existence. But one of the deepest and most abiding concerns in all places for all peoples is our feeling for and relationship with God. My point is that you may be able to run from your true feelings about God or non-God, but it is difficult to hide from them in the long term. Thus, it is your advantage to confront these feelings sooner rather than later. Dr. Sample, a scientist, an electrical engineer, and one of the most esteemed men in the academic world, then shared how he personally confronted what he believes about God. He had been a nominal Episcopalian for 35 years, a cultural Christian, and then, quite by accident, he came into serious contact with the Bible. That began a new chapter in his life. I had taken a job temporarily in Chicago and living in a suburb. Each day I took a commuter train into the city. I had time to read, so I thought as a matter of cultural education, I should read the Bible. I soon learned that if you ride a commuter train with the Bible in your hand, no one wants to sit by you. That was a little side benefit. Anyway, I was reading the Bible. I tried to understand why that text had made such a huge impact on our society and indeed around the world. Ultimately, I read all the Bible, but it was the four Gospels that really had the effect on me. It wasn't a flash of lightning. It wasn't an epiphany in a sense. But by reading the Gospels several times, I began to see that there was something here that went far beyond cultural Christianity. I found myself praying a personal prayer to God and to Jesus Christ several times a day. From that time on, it has been a very important part of my life. Dr. Sample concluded, the central business of the university is the education of its students, undergraduates, graduate students, postdoctoral students, and professional students. But the focus is on the development of the individuals through the cultivation and enrichment of the human mind and spirit. My religious faith has helped keep me focused on the core values of the university, which are human values, people values. Wow, what a mission Dr. Sample has to help educate the next generation about values and to nourish them intellectually. And it came from examining his values, discovering his natural gifts, and beginning the process. To find a mission that gives purpose and meaning to your own life, let your mission be bigger than who you are. Make your goals big enough for God to fit in, then you will find a mission that truly gives purpose and meaning to life. Recently, I came across another story of a man who had quite a different approach to finding the special mission God had for him. I found it in a piece called Finding Himself on an Island, written by Lori Bashida and published in the Orange County Register on October 14th, 2003. So you're having a midlife crisis, wrestling with questions like, where are you going and what is the point? Do like Sean Downs did and get a second life, or one that includes tribal villagers on a primitive island in Indonesia. Sean Downs lives in Laguna Hills. He has a supportive wife and two charming children, and a Hearst Castle worthy pool in the backyard of his well-appointed home. He is in charge of a 300-person Arvine division of Fair Isaac, a software company traded on the New York Stock Exchange. But at 40, some serious questions began knocking around inside his head. What responsibility do I have to a higher purpose when I've been so blessed? And what should I do with the second half of my life? Downs read the Midlife Catalyst book Halftime, and he was energized by the theme of moving from success to significance. He took a 3-month sabbatical from work, and he set out to find the perfect wave. Well, there's no law that says you can't ponder significance and surf at the same time. Besides, he was burned out. He needed to think, and it was the waves that drew Downs to his destiny. First, he and his family flew to Bali, where he had surfed before, but this time the waters were too crowded. Downs' wife, Catherine, and the children Avery, 13, and Brian, 9, returned to Laguna Hills. He took a prop plane to the island of Sumba. There, word had it, he would find a quiet resort on a killer surf break. That wasn't all he found. Sumba is one of the poorest islands in Indonesia, in the Indonesian archipelago. Nearly 40% of children died by age 8 from dysentery or other diseases because there was no clean water. Most of the inhabitants on the west side lived in huts made of grass and bamboo. There was no electricity. The island had gained a note of fame on the Discovery Channel for its megalithic grave sites and tribal rituals, but was largely forgotten when it came to aid. This is apparent just a few hundred yards from Nihiwatu, a resort opened by Claude Graves in New Jersey in 2001. It employs only islanders. Graves told Downs it was his mission to pull the Sumba people from poverty by creating jobs for them. His dream, to start a foundation to improve the lives of the Sumbanese. Downs knew this was the moment he had been waiting for. I was scared at first, he remembers. Is this foolish venture to commit my money to? My time? He returned to Laguna Hills 3 weeks later and presented his wife with the plan. I just took the step of faith, he says. Catherine pledged her support. This isn't a flash in the pan, she says. It's a lifelong commitment. A Costa Mesa attorney helped him incorporate the nonprofit Sumba Foundation, dedicated to improving health and education on the island without disrupting traditions. That was April 2002. The foundation's first project was to buy a drilling rig in Indonesia and ship it by ferry to the island along with a crew to train the locals to use it. In 18 months, 6 wells were drilled, bringing clean water to 1,500 people. In April, the foundation employed the villagers to build a medical clinic and airlifted $150,000 worth of vitamins, antibiotics, and malaria medication donated from the Santa Barbara Charity Direct Relief. And in May, a team of 8 surfers, medical association doctors, arrived in Sumba to volunteer their services, treating hundreds of villagers the first day. Downs then traveled to Sumba to begin a malaria education program, distributing sleeping nets and medicine. Each trip reinforces for him that he is doing the right thing. Downs saw that village schools had holes in the roofs and floors, broken scraps of furniture served as desks, and the children had no pencils or papers. They drew with sticks in the sand. Most students dropped out by 6th grade. The foundation has sponsored 3 schools so far, building desks and bathrooms that they never had before, and donating pencils and papers and soccer balls. At one village, Downs and his brother and 2 friends produced a frisbee and began tossing it to each other. Crowds quickly gathered. People came out of the hills to watch this flying disc. Soon they were chanting, "Whoop, whoop, whoop," with each toss. The Americans gave the frisbee to the tribal chief. He tossed it, hitting someone in the crowd in the chest. They thought it was the funniest thing they had ever seen. The game went on for hours. When Downs returned to the village a few months later, he asked what happened to the frisbee. Apparently, they played with it until it was just disintegrated. Downs declines to reveal how much money his family has given to the foundation. The only criteria was that it had to be an amount that was significant to us, he says. Graves donates a portion of the money he makes at his resort, but Downs says private donations make up the chief income. He collected nearly $100,000 this year from business associates, church friends, surf friends. A Newport Beach doctor heard about the foundation, flew to Sumba, and then wrote a $5,000 check. A Mission Hospital doctor recently donated $10,000. After Downs shared his Sumba story at his church recently, 4 Orange County families asked if they could adopt a village. They are praying for a well to be dug, schools repaired, and mosquito nets. The 13 children included, will travel to Sumba in July to meet the people they are helping. I was just trying to find my purpose in life, Downs said. I had no idea. Sean Downs went on vacation and found a fabulous tomorrow. Chapter 4. Choose positive values that empower your future. Johnny the Grateful Johnny, the grateful mother, said to her son, "You were so helpful to me today. I'm giving you a special thank you." She reached out her open palm to offer him a quarter. "Johnny, you can go to the store and buy anything you please. Have fun shopping." The boy was ecstatic. This was back many years ago when 25 cents could go a long way toward satisfying a child's imagination. In the store, Johnny was attracted to balloons. Tempted, he looked at the choice of sizes and colors, but he laid them down and moved on. A box of crayons? Yes. No. Tiny cars. Yellow, blue, red? I don't know. He said to himself. A kite? Then finally, whistles. Yes, yes. He made his selection. Then he headed for the registers. Excited by his purchase with his one and only coin, the shopkeeper applauded his choice, took his money, and handed him his brand new whistle, and watched him run out of the store. Just outside, he put the whistle to his lips and blew. It was loud. It was beautiful. He made music all the way home. He had always wanted a whistle, and now he had one. But even before he reached home, his satisfaction had run its course. Bored with his new toy, he threw it on the grass. Then, frustrated and unfulfilled in tears, he cried to himself, "A whistle? Why did I waste my quarter on a whistle? I didn't want a whistle after all." Shakespeare wrote The Merchant of Venice. "You shall seek all day ere you find them, and when you have them, they are not worth the search." In our compulsive quest for satisfaction, we have become a throwaway society. We throw away food, throw away clothes, throw away appliances. Last year's cell phone, computers, VCRs are all obsolete. Technology is a throwaway industry. The result? Our trash containers are overflowing and community landfills have become mountains as tons of throwaways are added daily. All the while, TV sitcoms, tabloids, and movies bombard us with throwaway relationships, throwaway marriages, throwaway families, yes, even throwaway lives. No wonder we are in danger of throwing away time-tested values, classical music, classical sexual morality, and classical Judaic Christian values. Careless, cavalier, and uncommitted, we too often throw away these classic values by accepting what is, at least for today, fashionable. Not a few people throw away their tomorrows because their value system is confused and conflicted, and they are driven more by primitive, uncivilized passions than by civilized values. Money, ego, sex, pleasure, power, control are all powerful and primeval passions within the human personality. Passions are the expression of natural emotional or biological hungers in the human being. They are natural inner drives in human personality that can and will shape our behavior for better or worse. Passions are not necessarily negative expressions of human beings, but they can compete with or divert human resources such as time and energy from values that build character and ultimately fulfill life with a satisfying pride and self-respect. Passion in humans desires are often in conflict with values. I love to be slender and attractive and physically fit in body. That's a value, but I love to eat. That's a passion. Values must transcend primitive biological desires and bring civility to primeval emotional outburst. Values, not instinctive desires, must define and design our morality. Values will determine how passions and desires are disciplined to promote character and development. Passions are innate emotions distinguished from reason, but values are chosen. Values are the moral, ethical, and spiritual principles that guide, control, direct, manage, release, or restrain our passionate energy. All passions are powerfully important, and all passions will be shaped, one way or another, by values. The values you choose will design the architecture of your personality, shaping it toward positive or negative ends. Wholesome values create joy and enthusiasm, which generate energy. But when the architecture of your personality is dominated by negative values, your moods may be morose, melancholy, morbid, or even mean. When primitive passions are left unmanaged by honorable human values, the creature that evolves will be virtually uncivilized. Civility is dangerous and vulnerable. What really matters most in your life? What motivates you? Are you passion driven? Are you purpose driven? For the past 50 years, I have lived in Southern California, a place with crazy mix of ideologies, politics, and religions. The culture here is anything goes, in pleasure or money, pursuits, in relationships, and marriage or sex. Freedom in the community verges on cultural anarchy. And through its entertainment industry, it is trend-setting power. California is the leading edge for cultural changes all over the world. The modern world of anything goes. A world without a solid grounding in values is a world without purpose or direction. In such a world, we need a renaissance of positive values. I was once asked by a reporter from a famous, successful, erotic magazine, Dr. Schuller, is there any passion humans can experience that gives as much or more pleasure than sex? My answer was yes. It is a happy tear in the eye at a wedding or a celebration, at a graduation or an award ceremony, at the playing of a national anthem or a spiritual festival, or at a funeral when warm memories of care and compassion fill the heart with an indescribable love. Yes, it is the happy tears erupting with passionate joy when your heart is moved by tender, touching, triumphant story in the life of another human being, or when we sense or see innocence or heroism in a person such as Olympian, who exchanges years of ease and pleasure for hard work, training, and sacrifice and earns the gold medal to thunderous applause. Yes, when we are witnessing and experiencing a God thing, when a true story is told with sincerity to inspire, to uplift, to motivate you to be like heroes, then your soul is stirred. Hope rises within you and erupts in tears from your eyes. This is spiritual passion, which illuminates the powerful potential of emotional wellness. The debate over the role of nature versus nurture will probably go on forever, but almost no one believes that we are born with our values absolutely fixed and predetermined. Values are not inherited in genes. Values are chosen from the teachings of parents or teachers, from ideology, philosophy, culture, or religion. In a doctoral program in education at a prominent university, the professor led students in a discussion on ethics in educational leadership. The discussion was intended to help these future schools administrators identify their values. Let me turn this alarm off, sorry. Goodness. The discussion was intended to help these future school administrators identify their values. What is most important to you? The instructor asked. One eager student raised his hand and said, I think it is honesty. I believe it's important for us to be honest with our students, our parents, or our colleagues. Really? Challenged the professor. What if you had a staff member who was overweight? Would you be honest and tell him that he needed to lose weight? Well, the grad student stammered. Then he began backpedaling, qualifying when and how he would be honest, grasping for words that would please the professor. Another student bravely countered, more than honesty, I believe we need respect for everybody. Really? Asked the professor once again, eyebrows raised. Even Hitler? Well, and so it went, with varying suggestions made, revised, qualified. Some suggested that they valued personal responsibility. Finally, one suggestion pointed to care and compassion. This value hit a chord with the professor and was apparently what he was waiting to hear. The challenge, the professor contended, is to know what you believe. What do you value? Through what lens do you see your world and those around you? Your values will be shaped by your philosophy. What was the professor trying to teach these aspiring leaders in education? He was trying to help them identify their own values after raising their awareness through the introductory discussion. He led them into a lecture on personal philosophy and how it shapes our value systems. Habitat for Humanity is known around the world for its compassionate caring. Few people know how and why it all began, but I know, for Mildred Fuller is my friend. When Mildred Fuller confronted and changed his values, he found real joy and fulfillment. Mildred Fuller was a lawyer and businessman and a millionaire when suddenly his wife left him. But, praise God, he got her back. They both felt that their wealthy lifestyle had driven them away from God and from each other, so they took a big step to just give all their stuff away. They did just that, and Habitat for Humanity was born. In Millard Fuller's own words, today I consider myself one of the richest people on earth. How can you put a value on what we experience when we dedicate a house for a needy family? Millard Fuller's mission was to eliminate poverty housing. He based his mission on the great values from the Bible. With God, all things are possible. Love your neighbor as yourself. Habitat builds the whole house, including landscaping and all the flowers, and the family is ready to move in. Millard says, when you know your neighbor's name and you try to identify real families and real needs, and you go to them with real love and build houses not for them but with them, that's loving your neighbor. Habitat houses are not charity. The families have to put in hundreds of sweat equity hours. And when a house is finished, the family pays for it on the Bible finance plan. No profit, no interest, which makes it affordable to low-income families. Every homeowner for whom Habitat builds is a partner. Each becomes a participant. It is more blessed to give than to receive, says Millard. If you don't allow the recipient to also give, you have left out one of the real important ingredients of the Christian faith that we profess. That's Millard's philosophy for the success of Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity will build their 200,000th house this year, which will house 1 million people. The organization believes that everybody who is made in the image of God should have a decent place to live on terms they can afford to pay. All of this is done through mostly volunteer labor. Local Habitat for Humanity organizations called affiliates receive applications from families who are homeless or living in inadequate housing and whose income does not qualify them for a loan from a bank or a savings and loan association. Obviously, we can't wave a magic wand and build a house for everyone who needs one immediately. It's like a little mustard seed of faith. You build one, you get a little stronger, you build another, you get a little stronger, and you build 2 more. But Millard Fuller says, we always keep the goal in mind of building a house for everybody because the God we serve is the God of us all. The God we serve is a God of 100 sheep. We know that God is also the God of the lost sheep. There may be 99 in the fold, but if there may be 99 in the fold, but if there is one still outside, spiritually, economically, physiologically, that's one too many. So Millard Fuller keeps on building homes through Habitat for Humanity. On September 9th, 1996, at a ceremony in the White House, Millard Fuller, the founder of Habitat for Humanity, received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, for the important contributions he is making not only for our nation but also to communities in more than 50 countries around the world. Today, Habitat for Humanity is at work in 100 countries. Your worth as a human being will be measured by the quality of the values that you choose. In college, our psychology professor made us memorize these lines. Sow an idea, reap an act. Sow an act, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. Every human being, intuitively, accidentally, or intentionally, evolves into a character. Character is a definition of your personhood. It is the essential core that defines and describes your reputation. Character is conceived and born in the arena where your life's principles are chosen. Then character will shape your choices and decisions. Character will be the force in your personality that will motivate you to set goals and manage your life to meet them. And strong character will survive any outcome. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, character is that which we can do without success. What you are is more important than what you do. There are, in the final analysis, no great or non-great people. We are all the same. The difference is that some people are committed to noble and honorable values. Great values deliver great character. I have become friends with many highly esteemed people in my lifetime. All are molded not by uncontrolled passion, but by what I call value-controlled passion. This drives them to unselfish greatness. Mother Teresa was recently beatified in the Roman Catholic Church. She kept many a person from throwing away their tomorrows. She was, in her own words, a human in whose heart Jesus Christ lived. Her mission, to do something beautiful for God. Her strategy can be found in a handwritten blessing to me. To Dr. Schuller, be all and only for Jesus. Let him use you without consulting you first. 2 of my greatest honors were to be invited to her funeral in Calcutta, India, and then to her beatification ceremony at the Vatican in Rome. the Vatican, and Rome. Compassion was, in my judgment, the dominant value that drove her. It was this spiritual value that impassioned her to bring love and hope into the tomorrows of thousands of suffering people. When and where can we be inspired to choose high and honorable values? Nature sets some values. Many must be viewed as non-negotiable. All life on planet Earth requires clean air and clean water. Nature cannot care for itself. Human beings must preserve an environment in which birds sing and flowers bloom. If we disregard these values long enough, our planet will die. Traditions deliver deep values. Consider respectfully and courageously the power of tradition in shaping our values. Governance is primitive. Culture was often controlled, for good or ill, by tribal tradition. In the awe-inspiring musical Fiddler on the Roof, Tivey, the head of his family living in the small village of Antivica, struggles with traditions and values. In Antivica, he says there were traditions for everything: how to eat, how to sleep, how to wear clothes. For instance, they always kept their heads covered and always wore a little prayer shawl to show their constant devotion to God. Because of their traditions, everyone knew who they were and what God expected them to do. Tivey is molded by tradition, but he has the capacity to compromise until his last daughter asks his approval to marry an atheist. This he cannot compromise and loudly declares, "Some things I cannot allow." Tradition. Yet people abandon proven traditions. Why? Sometimes it is a result of youthful rebellion. Other times it is wanting to catch a new wave, attracting attention to feed the ego. Revolutionism attracts attention when unknown authors find their shocking theories published in journals, columns, op-ed pieces, and books. Even responsible publishers can fall prey to this seduction, and the internet will publish anything. When you throw away yesterday, you also throw away part of tomorrow. If you forget where you came from, you will not long remain where you are, which is why I keep my framed infant baptismal dress hanging on my study wall. Tradition in culture is like the root system of a plant. The root system must be preserved from toxic invasion. Neglect the root system and the fruit tree will secretly begin to die. Tradition is the great protector of the proven historic values. It preserves life forms from negative deviation or extinction. René du Bois, father of social biology, discovered that if you change the sociology of a life form, you change the living organism. Most often it will die or allow its nature to be altered in its struggle to survive. Change the natural habitat of a human being and you change the character. Take Adam out of the garden and put him in a freeway traffic with horns, sirens, and fumes, and he loses his spiritual awareness. But tradition can be, and often has been, the first and foremost obstacle to progress. It has aborted many tomorrows that would have helped society become healthy and prosperous. If it works, don't fix it. The traditionalist warns, but the positive thinker strives to be creative. If it works, improve it. The creative mind declares, certainly misapplied tradition can be oppressive and restrictive of progress, but there is equal danger in reacting against a tradition simply because it is old and out of fashion. Be not the first to lay the old aside, nor yet the last by which the new is tried. Be assured that most traditions must have had some wisdom and real value, or they never would have survived long enough to become recognized and in a respected tradition. Rejecting a tradition and replacing it with a vacuum allows untried and untested avant-garde values to move in. Wisdom declares that setting aside traditional values is a serious business, not be undertaken lightly. Before we take down fences, we should learn why they were put up in the first place. Religion is the power of positive spiritual passions. No other institution matches the power of religious institutions to mold human personalities with traditional human values. Certainly, the religious faith taught me as a child has been the primary source of my value system. I was brought up on the Ten Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount. From this Judaic Christian foundation, I received a strong set of values imbued with faith, hope, and love. The faith has delivered energy and enthusiasm into my life. The values motivated me to say yes to great ideas, to maintain an I will not quit attitude, and to have the courage to say no to the luring values that come from a dehumanizing secular culture. In 1967, I attended the World Psychiatric Congress in Madrid, Spain. Along with over 4,000 psychiatrists from around the world, the final plenary session carried the theme Human Values in Psychiatry. 3 distinguished psychiatrists each submitted a value, and when the first lecturer spoke on faith, I was shocked. Never knock it. Look for it in your patients, he said. Build on it. It is an expression of positive mental activity that is a potential power force in human personality. The second doctor spoke on hope, an awesome, powerful human value, he declared. The third psychiatrist spoke on love, the most powerful of all human values, he told us. These 3 human values, the world of mental and emotional healing professionals were told, are the ultimate positive values. Where did these psychiatrists find these power values? All 3 were men raised in cultures in which the Judeo-Christian religion dominated and the Holy Bible was respected. In this book, we read how the followers of Jesus Christ were taught by Paul, and now abide faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. 1 Corinthians 13:13. Positive spiritual passion is the power source of human values that transform people from selfish, greedy, arrogant, and duplicitous creatures into beautiful human beings who are unselfish, generous, caring, and compassionate. Choose your values carefully. Seek and accept the spiritual faith that boosts and bless those values that will shape you into a more beautiful human being. Stop at the bottom of page 70.